I live in a small town in Nebraska, just south of the Platte River. Small is an overstatement. Our town is downright dinky. It's the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business. We have a main street with a couple of shops still open, and a handful of houses that stretch out in neighborhoods behind. And of course, the old cemetery just outside of town. We used to have a movie theater, but it closed down 25 years ago. The town was founded on an old railroad line back in the 1880s. Up until that point, most of the people who came through the area were headed west. But the railroad and the famously rich Nebraska soil, well, that got more than a few to stay. We have a lot of local history that revolves around pioneers and gunfighters, those kind of things. But there's one story about a dark figure that everybody knows, but we don't like to talk about. Now the locals, we all grew up with tales about the angry preacher. Some describe him as a kind of cult leader that moved through the town soon after it had been founded. Others say he was born right here and managed to collect quite a large congregation of mostly women until he went crazy or was overtaken by the devil. He's buried in the old cemetery, but even his grave marker doesn't give much actual information. Years ago, somebody defaced the tombstone. The date of his death had been painstakingly removed with a chisel and hammer. But the creepiest part is that whatever his name was started with an S and an A, but the grave defiler had removed the rest of the name and carved in new letters, so it spelled Satan. Growing up, my friends and I would all joke that it was proof that Satan was alive and well in our town. As a young man, I used to hang out with my friends in the cemetery on weekends and evenings. But I don't do that anymore. As a matter of fact, I will never go back to that graveyard as long as I live. One night, many years ago, me and my friend Matt and his girlfriend Trish all went up to the cemetery just to drink some beers and hang out. Matt and I loved walking among the old tombstones. He always made it fun. He had a mean sense of humor. He would yell things at the graves like, "Why are all of you being lazy and sleeping? Get up. Get a job." Trish didn't like the graveyard very much. She only went because Matt would laugh at her and call her names if she didn't come along. So as usual, on this night, Trish found a reason to stay in the car and not follow me and Matt into the cemetery. "It's too cold," she said. "I'm just gonna freeze out there. You two go. I'm gonna stay here, stay warm, and listen to the radio." After a few jokes about Trish being scared, Matt turned to me and said, "Come on." We squeezed through the old chained front gate, careful of the bottles of beer in our coat pockets. A mist had formed on the ground, and it really gave the old creepy place a sense of cold, dark terror. I don't know if it was by luck or by design, but we never usually ventured into the part of the graveyard where the angry preacher laid. But tonight, Matt had already had more than his usual amount to drink, and he was in a particularly mean mood. He said, "That preacher up in here thinks he's got the whole town scared of him, but not me. I think we should go and have a talk with that old withered corpse." My immediate thought was, hell no, I don't want to go up there. But I knew if I said anything but yes, Matt wouldn't let me forget about it the entire night. I didn't believe any of the creepy stories or strange sightings in the graveyard, and I certainly didn't believe that the devil himself was somewhere on the grounds. But still, in the darkness, with the mist, and the gravestones poking out of the ground, yeah, I was a little scared. We made our way past the modern graves. I recognized one that belonged to my third-grade teacher. She had been killed when her car was crushed by a truck in a horrible road accident. Another grave had been freshly dug, but was empty. A cover had been put over the top so nobody would fall in, but I could see past it to the cold, dark hole that laid below. As we walked forward, the graves began to look older and more decrepit. Finally, we reached the oldest part of the cemetery. There in front of us, a slightly toppled, defaced headstone of the angry preacher. Matt wasted no time. He started yelling and taunting the occupant of the defiled grave to show himself. "I'm not scared of you," he yelled. I laughed nervously and said, "All right, you've had your say. Let's go somewhere else." But Matt seemed almost possessed. There was an anger in him I'd never really seen before. He continued to berate the headstone and the body that laid somewhere deep beneath it. Finally, he proclaimed, "Everyone else in this town are cowards, but not me. I'm calling you out. Come get me." It was the scream that I still remember today. Terrified, panicked. It was Trish. Back at the car, we could hear her hysterically screaming for help. Matt and I took off at a sprint, dodging between the tombstones and being careful not to slip on the cold, wet grass. As we approached the gate, I caught sight of Trish writhing in the back seat. It looked like she was being attacked as her hands and feet bashed against the windows. Her screams were that of absolute terror. As we pushed through the gate and ran towards the car, everything just stopped. No more screaming, no more fighting. Matt quickly opened the car door. Inside, Trish was sobbing. Her face was scratched. Her arms had reddish, blackish bruises. Trish never told us what happened to her. Even today, many years later, she still won't talk about it. But I know what I saw. That night, she was in a fight for her life in the back seat. But there was nobody else in the car with her. At least, nobody who could be seen. I believe that when Matt taunted the angry preacher, that spirit didn't come after us. He came after Trish. Today, I really do believe the devil inhabits the graveyard outside of my small town. And I warn you, if you know the whereabouts of this cemetery, you should stay away. If you don't know where it is, don't come looking.